We are ready for peace talks, but we are not ready to surrender.
Ukraine calls for a ceasefire in the conflict with Russia, as Russian President Vladimir Putin could take desperate measures to gain more ground.
He was, I think, clearly hoping for an easier path to victory.
The U.S. is taking new measures as the conflict expands.
It's been an overwhelming experience. No 2 days are alike.
People in Louisville are trying to rebuild after the Marshall Fire. They're calling on the city council to give them a break and save them thousands of dollars.
I want them to be able to come back and make Louisville the strong town that we were before.
Plus, a Colorado man gets a wake-up call about heart health.
I could hear my heart beating, and I knew something was wrong.
We're looking live from Kyiv, Ukraine, where several large explosions were heard about an hour and a half ago. The explosions were followed by sirens going off. The U.S. says Russian forces are about 15 miles from the city. Thanks so much for joining us for Denver 7 News at 11. I'm Jason GRUENAUER. All of this happening as Russian and Ukrainian delegates met for negotiations this morning. Their main goal to discuss a ceasefire. Faith Abube reports on what needs to be done to resolve the crisis.
Ukrainian and Russian delegates seen arriving at the Belarus border with Ukraine this morning for their first direct talks since Russian troops invaded Ukraine. Russia signaling it wants Ukraine to adopt a neutral status in order to resolve the crisis. But Ukrainian President Zelensky doubtful of a diplomatic breakthrough in a video to his people telling the Russian soldiers to save their lives and go away. Overnight, more shelling in Ukraine, including the capital city of Kyiv. The Ukrainian army mounting a fierce defense against Russia's more advanced and larger military force. Even Ukrainian citizens taking up arms to defend their nation.
It's patriotic. These people is patriotic.
Russia's defense ministry admitting its forces have suffered losses.
I think what's most noticeable here is that the Russian military seems incompetent. It's shocking how bad they are.
Fears the slowdown could lead Russian President Vladimir Putin to take more desperate measures. Over the weekend, the Russian leader putting his nuclear deterrent forces on high alert for the first time in nearly 50 years, claiming NATO countries were making aggressive statements against Russia. The U.S. leaving its nuclear alert level unchanged.
This is really a pattern that we've seen from President Putin through the course of this conflict, which is manufacturing threats that don't exist in order to justify further aggression.
Meanwhile, Russia and its people already feeling the economic pain of punishing international sanctions. Its currency, the ruble, tumbling against the U.S. dollar. The Russian stock market reportedly closed for the day. And amid the international backlash against Russia, the International Olympic Committee is now recommending that international sports federations and organizers not invite or allow Russian and Belarusian athletes to participate in competitions. In Washington, Faith Abube, ABC News.
In other developments this morning, the U.S. is also temporarily shutting down its embassy in Belarus as the Russian military assault on Ukraine expands. And non-emergency U.S. embassy staff and families of diplomats in Moscow are being told to leave due to security and safety issues related to the invasion. There are heartbreaking scenes at Ukraine's border crossings as people try to flee the country. Roads are lined up with cars and thousands of people are packing train stations hoping to get to safety in neighboring countries. More than 500,000 refugees have fled Ukraine since war broke out last week.
There is no information about some clear train.
So Juliana,
they're just in line for some possible, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, maybe in 2 days.
Officials say this is likely the most people displaced in the shortest amount of time since World War II. The U.S. is sending more than $50 million in humanitarian aid to help. Governor Jared Polis has said Colorado is ready to welcome Ukrainian refugees. Taking a look at the stock market, stocks are down about 400 points so far on this trading day. The war in Ukraine has really caused markets to swing up and down as some countries block Russian banks from a global payment system. Russian stocks have been taken off of Wall Street, and just in the last few minutes, Shell says it will exit Russian oil and gas investments. President Joe Biden's first State of the Union address will take place with the war between Russia and Ukraine dominating international news. Biden is set to deliver that speech at 7 tomorrow night and will highlight his administration's priorities and agenda. You can watch that speech right here on Denver 7. We will have analysis afterwards on Denver 7 News at 10. Crisis teams are at Stanley Lake High School in Jefferson County today to comfort students following a crash that killed several students. Over the weekend, 5 people were killed in a crash near 112th and Highway 85 in Commerce City. 3 others survived. Denver 7's Christian Lopez spoke to the family of a teenage girl who was seriously hurt.
This is an unimaginable loss for classmates, teachers, and family members who were impacted. We spoke to the grandfather of one of the crash victims who says that she is in the hospital right now fighting for her life. Police say 5 people died in the crash Friday evening when 2 SUVs collided. 3 people survived, including Anaya Whitehorn, but her family says that she suffered brain and spine injuries, 2 broken legs, and broken ribs. Her grandfather says the car she was in looked like it had fallen off a bridge and says it's a miracle she survived.
We're lucky that Anaya lived through this. There are other family members right now dealing with funeral arrangements, and I can't imagine what they're going through right now.
He says Anaya's best friend was killed in that crash. If you'd like to support the victims' families, we have a link to their GoFundMe pages on our website, thedenverchannel.com. Reporting in Westminster, I'm Christian Lopez, Denver 7.
3 teenagers were hurt when the floor collapsed underneath them at a house party over the weekend. It happened Saturday in Arapahoe County. Video posted on social media showed when it happened, and other video shows people trying to crawl out. South Metro Fire says between 100 and 150 people were at the party when the first floor buckled into the basement.
They were running that way, and my wife saw that because she went in the garage to see some more. But there were young people running, and I don't know why.
First responders say no one was trapped. The collapsed floor did cause a gas leak, but that line was quickly shut off. Aurora City Council will discuss a homeless camping ban tonight. Under the new proposal, the homeless would be forced to leave 72 hours after a complaint, and the city manager would be required to provide shelter for people being moved. Mayor Mike Kaufman tried to introduce a ban last summer, but it failed twice. The Louisville City Council will consider suspending certain building codes at its meeting tomorrow. People in Louisville rebuilding from the Marshall Fire are worried the current green and energy efficient codes could cost them tens of thousands of dollars. They rallied in Louisville yesterday, saying they want to rebuild using the 2018 standards.
We are in a crisis. We are trying to stabilize our lives and come back. And these codes just make it more expensive.
The current codes include a net zero requirement. Those requirements include having Energy Star appliances, solar panels or credits, and vehicle charging stations in the garage. Now, this went into effect in November, just weeks before the Marshall Fire. Well, dozens of musicians are coming together tonight to raise money for Marshall Fire victims. The virtual concert starts at 7. Dave Matthews, One Republic, and Nathaniel Rateliff are just a few of the artists who will perform. Tickets are $10, but larger donations are welcome. The concert stream will be available for 24 hours. Monitoring wildfires is one topic Colorado lawmakers will talk about today. A House bill would require the Department of Natural Resources to create 1 or more camera pilot programs to detect wildfires in urban areas. The programs would cost about $2 million and would start next spring. The House will also debate several other bills today, including 3 on gun legislation. One of them would legalize carrying concealed handguns on school property. Another deals with Colorado's Make My Day law. The proposal would expand immunity from criminal prosecution for an owner if someone breaks into a home or business. Coloradans will soon have new driver's licenses. This is what the back and front is going to look like. Governor Jared Polis will officially unveil them today. This is the first ID card where Coloradans had a say in its design. There were more than 400 entries. Colorado last redesigned driver's licenses in 2015. Well, February is American Heart Month, so it's a good time to focus on our cardiovascular health. And that goes for anyone, no matter your age. Denver 7's Colette Bordelon shares one man's story who learned that advice firsthand.
Seconds spent driving past a stoplight. Part of a rhythm. Heard in the traffic. And drowned out for one driver in 2015.
As human beings, we're not supposed to hear our heartbeat.
But it's the last sound Robert Mwangi remembers.
One day I was alive, and then I was gone.
At only 37, he had a heart attack in the time it took for the light to go from red to green.
By the grace of God, there was a fire station 1 minute away from where I collapsed.
Saved by doctors, the soccer player couldn't believe what happened to him.
I was in shock when I left the hospital. And I sat under a tree for so many days just staring into the horizon, just the thought that I had died.
His family, part of his second chance, but he was told he'd be on medication for the rest of his life.
I had never slept well because of the pills.
Then he met a doctor who wanted to change that.
Even though they saved his life, I think there were still a lot of unanswered questions.
Dr. Donald Rabor, through a special procedure, restored a normal heartbeat.
The medications that were really helping him prevent any further problems was really dragging him down.
Putting the pills in the past.
I have never felt so good in my life.
And putting Mwangi back in the driver's seat. Colette Bordelon, Denver 7.
Coming up, John Elway is stepping into a new role with the Denver Broncos. And the UN is sending a warning about climate change and the impacts warmer temperatures are having on our lives.